Easing into a fasting regimen can improve hypoglycemia, insulin resistance, and diabetes, and that's proven with research.
Yeah.
So if you get hypoglycemic, fasting can actually help you. Welcome back to the Kingdom Fasting Podcast. I'm Brianne Sims, RN.
I'm Dr. Sam Sims, nurse anesthesiologist.
And we are continuing our series on what is fasting and why should it matter to me. The basics of fasting, basically. And today we're talking about who shouldn't fast. It's an important topic.
Yeah, because a lot of people will say, I can't fast because this.
Whatever reason.
And the reality is mostly they're like, you just don't want to fast.
I mean, it does sound kind of a lot to eat food, right?
Yeah. It's like, I get that, but I can't fast because. So, who shouldn't fast? Scientific data, what does it recommend? What are the recommendations? So, first of all, pregnant. If you're pregnant, you shouldn't fast. Now, there are some people who do fast when they're pregnant.
Yeah.
That has been shown to be maybe okay, but no more than 24 hours.
Right.
And be very, very careful when you do that. I'm not going to recommend it, but I know some people that do fast when they're pregnant. Breastfeeding. Now, some of this just research that we get actually comes from religious groups that fast routinely. So these are actually, the breastfeeding one comes from the Ramadan fast. And they didn't really find any negative effects
on women who are breastfeeding.
But these are less than 24-hour fasts.
Yeah.
But one of the things they do say, if you do fast while you're breastfeeding, make sure you monitor your milk supply because it can drop off. If it drops off, then you should stop fasting. So basically, there's this window of time that you probably shouldn't fast or be very careful if you do, would be during pregnancy and breastfeeding. Then another one is there's not really a whole lot of research, though there is starting to be some more research on adolescents fasting.
Yep.
And so in the past, it basically said, again, these were religious research that we found, was Muslims, again, Ramadan, and Mormons do a 24-hour dry fast once a month. A lot of times, kids will do that. A lot of times they'll start that somewhere. Sometimes they'll start as young as 6, but previously every month, Mormons do a longer fast. And so they didn't find any complications or any issues with either of these groups doing these 24-hour fasts or less.
Yep.
But we do have an interesting situation that we can talk about that we can say, at least in one situation, we know that adolescents were able to do a longer fast and not have any issues. And that actually happened to these kids in Thailand. They were a soccer team, and they went into this cave, and then it started to flood. And so they couldn't get out. And they were stuck in the back of this cave with no food, and actually divers had to go in, and so they didn't have food for at least 9 days. Okay?
Yeah.
And they actually, when the divers basically thought they were going to be recovering bodies because it's been 9 days, and these are adolescents, and they don't have a lot of fat on their body. And when they found them, the kids were actually able to drink. They had a clean water supply because it was actually dripping through the stalactites. So they had a clean water supply, and they were all alive.
Yeah, they were drinking basically mineral water.
And so then it's like, well, okay. And their coach was with them, and he had trained to be a Buddhist monk. And,
right, so he knew about fasting.
And
so he helped
them fast.
Through their
and the other thing is, it's like, okay, well, obviously, most people see the situation, well, obviously, they must have just been sitting still this entire time, because they didn't have food for 9 days. They must have been sitting there drinking water, just being completely... No, they dug by hand in over a 16-foot tunnel. They were trying to get out.
Yes, they were trying.
They were actively working the entire time.
Yeah.
So they rescued these kids, which it's an amazing, it's an amazing rescue thing, and it actually involves anesthesia, which is kind of cool. Where they had to sedate these kids, rescue the kids, and so it's really
neat
it's
story.
very neat. They get all the kids out, and of course, where do they take them? They take them to the hospital. And so they take them to the hospital, and then they do all these tests, and they didn't have food for 9 days and no complications.
Yeah. They all survived. They were all fine.
Yeah. So it's possible.
So kind of shocking.
So they did have their labs done and all these things afterwards. So if a kid can actually maybe potentially fast longer than 24 hours, but I would say definitely monitor some blood work when you did that. And it'd be obviously, better for kids that have obesity. Another one is basically don't fast if your BMI is below 17.
Right.
And where we get that is, I say caution if your BMI is between 17 and 18.4, that's considered underweight. What they originally, a lot of times when they look at these things, they'll say we start to see complications and with bleeding and all these other malnutrition complications happen sometime below. A lot of times they'll say below a BMI of 18.4. And then, but a lot of times they don't delineate when that starts. Obviously, 0 would be dead. When is it unsafe? And so when they actually have kind of parsed it out, they have found that those complications start to actually happen at a BMI below 17. So if your BMI is below 17, you shouldn't fast. There are elite athletes that their BMI is between 17 and 18, 18.4. They're usually long distance runners. They a lot of times they train in the fasted state because they don't want to hit the wall. And so there's some caution there. Typically, people who have BMIs that low don't fast more than 24 hours.
Right.
Some things that you should really monitor if your BMI is in that area. So fast with caution with a BMI between 17 and 18.4.
Because it can cause health complications.
Yeah, and then this gets into
but most of us don't fall anywhere near that.
No, and obviously anorexics shouldn't fast.
Yeah.
But fasting doesn't cause anorexia. We talked about that in the first episode. Anorexia nervosa is a mental condition. It is not a fasting condition. Yeah. You still want to eat food when you fast. I still enjoy food. So it doesn't cause anorexia. Another one was my big concern when I first started was I would get hypoglycemic, and so my sugars would crash, and so I felt like, and that's one of a lot of times we hear is like, I get hypoglycemic, so I can't fast. It's actually, the reason why you're having hypoglycemia is because you're having some insulin resistance, and actually mine has reset and is making you hangry, okay? Because you're like, I crashed and I get hangry and I need to eat, and so fasting actually resets your hormones, so I don't get hangry anymore, and I don't get hypoglycemic anymore, and fasting was used to cure that.
Yeah, easing into a fasting regimen can improve hypoglycemia, insulin resistance, and diabetes, and that's proven with research. Yeah. So if you get hypoglycemic, fasting can actually help you.
Yeah. But we do recommend if you have a litany of medications or you have a medical diagnosis, you need to check with your primary care provider. Some of them don't understand fasting, so but there are many medical benefits about with fasting.
And there are many medical providers out there who will work with you.
Yes.
If you are wanting to fast.
And people are starting to understand it and seeing the benefits of it.
Yeah.
PubMed's a great place to go to research it for you put your medical diagnosis in and fasting, and it'll pull up research articles that have to do with your medical diagnosis and fasting.
Right. Because fasting helps with so many medical diagnoses and so much physically. There's so much healing that goes on with fasting. So if you do have a medical diagnosis or you're on medications, I do encourage you to try fasting, and especially under the supervision of a healthcare provider, because it could be incredibly beneficial for you.
Life-saving for me.
Yeah, literally life-saving.
Yep.
And life-changing.
Yep.
For both of us.
So that's who shouldn't fast, and it's a very short list.
Yeah, very short list.
And most people are on it. Most people want to be on it, but most people aren't on it. Yeah. So the next episode, I'm actually going to talk about something. The scale will lie to you. How does the scale lie to you?
Yeah. So thanks for being here, and we hope you'll stay tuned for the next episode. And if this was helpful to you, we hope you will share it with your friends.